This is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. It is Tuesday, February 4th, and we are live from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas, and we are on the radio with you on 98.7 Walk by Faith, 1420 AM. We're streaming on 987radio.com, and we're all over social media at our page and soon to be on the Walk by Faith Facebook page. The Rock Health and Wellness Center is at Facebook. Jason Clemmons, DC on YouTube and on X, and at Health from the Rock on YouTube. So I hope you guys had a great day. We've been at it pretty much all day. Had a great workout this morning. Thought I'd share that with you too. Just thought it was harder than I thought, and I think it had to do with my intensity that I was with. But it's pretty simple. It was a simple little workout that we did, because I've had a few of you ask some questions about, what kind of workouts should I do, or what kind of workouts can I do? And there's all kinds of workouts to do, right? You can get workouts from anybody in the world. There's all kinds of things that a person could do with workouts. But this is what I did this morning. I basically did 4 rounds. And I had the clock set where I was doing 30 seconds at a time with a 20-second rest. And we did rower bike, and that's hard. It's a sprint basically. Like you're going at all these pretty fast. And then we did push-ups, and then we did wall balls, and then we did ab mat sit-ups. And if you don't have an ab mat, I really do recommend it. You can look it up, and you can go to, I got mine from Rogue Fitness. They're a little bit more expensive, but you can get them, you can just go to roguefitness.com, or just look it up, Google it, and look for an ab mat, and then it'll show you what it is, and they're pretty handy to have, really. And then we did overhead carries on a balance beam. And then we rested for a period. So that's what our exercise was today. It took 21 minutes. We warmed up for 3 minutes. We did our PVC pipe work. We did our vibe plate work. I did my overhead touches and my pursuits, the things that we do on the vibe plate. And just like a lot of you do when you come into the office and get adjusted. And then we got ready. We went through I always try to go through the movements that I'm going to do for that day. And then we got the clock ready. We hit the button, 3, 2, 1, go. And we got after it pretty hard. It was my heart rate was up there for 20 minutes, and we were moving. It was a full body workout. Everything got done. It was fatiguing. So that was the exercise that we did today. So if you're a super fit person, that's a really simple exercise, and you probably wouldn't think much of it, other than you probably would if you really hit it hard. You might try to get to 17 on the bike, on the Echo bike. 700, and get to 1700 on the rower, and then blast those push-ups as hard as you can. Do those wall balls as fast as you can, and then blast those sit-ups as hard as you can. I promise you, by the time you get to those overhead carries, you're going to be breathing a little bit. For the rest of us, as fast as you can is relevant, right? So that was the workout today. Wanted to share it with you. If you want to do something at home, that's how simple that is. So simple it is to just be healthy, right? So, you can write it down. You can come back and look at it, and we can go from there. So last night we took health to church. I hope it was helpful. I got some texts from a few people, good questions. I got a question earlier today, and I'll just answer it right now. And it was, does it matter how we breathe, especially when exercising? The the first thing that came to my mind when I read this text was the number one important thing to do is make sure you breathe. And make sure you're breathing. That's important. And sometimes you even wonder, like that exercise this morning, there's times in the middle of that where you even wonder if you can breathe. But I don't really think so. I don't. You could get technical with the way that you're breathing. For this particular person that sent in the question, you could. I don't think it's that big a deal. Does it matter how you breathe? I mean, I think it's important to breathe deep, and there's lots of um, our guy here, Wim Hof. Wim Hof does some specific kind of breathing that he does. You can look him up, Wim Hof, and you can look him up on the internet, and you can go to YouTube, and you can get some specific breathing techniques with him. Um, Dr. Huberman talks about breathing several different ways. If you're interested in listening to that, and that's another thing that you can do. But really, I mean, there's a for the most part, nope. Just take some deep breaths. I think that's probably a big deal. There is some ways that you can control your nervous system by the way that you breathe. There is some ways that you can bring down your anxiety by the way that you breathe. And if that's what your question is, yes, there are some specific techniques that you can do. And one of the things it's got like box breathing. You breathe in for I think it's 4 seconds. You breathe out, or you hold it for 4 seconds. You breathe out for 4 seconds, and then you hold it for 4 seconds, and then you repeat that process. And you do that a couple of times. You just got to make sure that you got to be careful with breathing because you can get lightheaded. So make sure that if you're going to go through some of these breathing techniques, that you're sitting down or you're in a safe place, so that if you were to get a little bit lightheaded and you were to pass out, you would be safe. Like if you're sitting on your bed or on a couch or a chair or something like that. So that might be something that you want to do from a breathing standpoint. So yeah, last night was good. The questions were good. I appreciate all the information. Now let's get after it. So, and I don't really know how this is going to go. And tonight might be a little bit rough. We'll just kind of see how it goes. I've been reading a book. So we had a case of measles show up in our town, and I mentioned it on Friday. We had a case of measles show up, or a couple cases of measles show up. Actually, I went and got adjusted today, and my chiropractor actually takes care of some of the people that got measles. And the little girl told my chiropractor, it's like, I don't even know what the big deal is. I just got a little bit of a rash, and chickenpox were way worse. Okay. Does that mean every case is bad? No. But that was the report that I got today on these overwhelmingly scary things that we hear. And what I'm going to try to do over the next couple of shows is I'm going to try to just talk about some thoughts about health. I can't talk about vaccines, whether or not you should take vaccines or not. It's not within my scope of practice, okay? And I don't even care, really. I mean, if you ask me, I'll tell you exactly how I feel about it, and I'll probably end up telling you exactly how I feel about it in this show. But I've done some research. I started 24 years ago when my daughter was born, November. She just turned 24 last November. I had to make a decision, and I've never been around anybody in my life about that didn't vaccinate their kids. Like I didn't even understand what that was a thing back then. So I've been on this journey for 24 years. Now I'm a chiropractor, and within my scope of practice, I'm not allowed to put you on or take you off any sort of prescription medication. It's not even something that I'm allowed to talk about. Okay, but I am allowed to talk about things that interfere with the nervous system. That's called a subluxation. And if you're a subluxation-based chiropractor, you can talk about things that interfere with the nervous system. One of the things that interferes with the nervous system is high fructose corn syrup, or fructose, right? We talked about that last week. We broke it down. We broke it down metabolically. We took Dr. Lustig's stuff. We drew a chart. We put it on the screen, and we broke down how it creates inflammation. It creates disturbance, right? It creates increased VLDL cholesterol. It increases fatty liver disease. Those things are disruptive to the nervous system. They're disruptive to the way that the brain works, right? I could say the same thing about pillows. People ask me all the time about pillows. Like, doc, is there a certain pillow I should sleep on? I'm like, well, you know, there may be interference in the nervous system that's happening by the way a pillow is. Same thing with the way a person eats, the way they exercise, the kind of shoes you wear, um, like how you sit in a chair, or what your posture should be in your pickup truck when you're driving down the highway. Like, there's all kinds of things that are related to the way that the nervous system functions. And if we can address those things, then we can decrease the energy or the interference in the nervous system. And that's the way I feel about this subject. And I know that when you talk about measles and you talk about vaccines, number one, you get very, very intense about the subject. You get a lot of people that get really intense. And there's a lot of people who have an opinion. I was just going through a picture. I just saw a picture, and if I can if I can look it up right quick, I'll share it with you. Yeah, it's right there. For you guys on the radio, you got to go to the Walk by Faith page, um, because this picture right here kind of goes in line with what we were talking about last night when we talked about reform your declarations. Leslie's going to love it if she finds out about this picture. So I'm not going to tell her. And so y'all can keep it a secret too, as far as I'm concerned. But this is a picture of back in the day right here. Okay. That's me and my son, Jacob, and Leslie. And so Jacob looks like he might be a year old. Maybe he is, he's got to be somewhere around 18 months, or he doesn't look like he's 2 years old yet. I don't know exactly what the date of that picture is. And I'm not smart enough to know how to look it up on my, there we go. What it says on my phone. But the point I'm trying to make with the picture is this. We reform our declarations. We change the way we think about things. And there was a time in my life that I thought very strongly about this subject on one side. And now, if you fast forward, I feel very strongly about this subject on the other side. And you say, well, why is that? Why do you do that? Well, it's based on the last 24 years of change. When Jacob was born, I took him and got him vaccinated. And I didn't know anything about it. I just did it because everybody else did it. I didn't do it because I felt like it was the scientific best thing to do for my child. I didn't do it because I had some sort of argument. Like if you would have asked me, why did you do it? I was like, I don't know, you're supposed to do it. It's like, why are you supposed to do it? Well, because they just said you were supposed to do it. I don't know why you're supposed to do it. Like, what is it? Is there any dangers in doing it? I have no idea. I don't think so. Like, I don't know if there is or there's not. I haven't studied it at all. I don't even have any idea. And this was in 1998 when Jacob was born. So I was coaching football at Tech. I was married to my high school sweetheart. I had my son. I was just going on through life like everybody else was going on through life, right? And so I remember taking him in there, and I remember the look he gave me when that lady stuck that needle in his thigh. And there was a loss of trust. There was a look in his eye that was looking back at me, and it was kind of like, I cannot believe you are letting these people do this to me. When he started crying on that, and I remember that look that he gave me in his eye, and I was like, wow. I knew it was, I didn't feel good about it in the moment. It was a horrible thing, but it didn't have anything to do with the science. It didn't have anything to do with my research. It didn't have anything to do with my stance that I have now. I just remember the emotion that went along with it back in the day. Well, that's 1998 or 99-ish, that around that time frame. is probably when that was happening. When I was coaching at Tech, didn't know anything about health. Used to take Rolaids, used to take Tylenol, used to drink Dr. Peppers right before that. I mean, right about that time was about the time that I quit drinking Cokes because Leslie said, nope, we're not going to have Cokes in our house with our son. And so I just changed, right? And then Caitlin was born in 2000. Well, now I changed. I had changed into a different place, and I was working for my brother-in-law, and I was starting to get exposed to some of these thoughts. And I talked to my pediatrician about it. He said it wasn't that big of a deal. He didn't know for sure. He actually told me in the hospital when Caitlin was born, he didn't know for sure if he had to do all over again that he would vaccinate his kids. He said, if it's a life and death situation, I'll tell you that. And if it's not, then it's not. And I don't think this is. And I was like, fair enough. And I talked to my pastor at the time about it. I was trying to get help. I was trying to get research. I was trying to get information. And when you start looking for that kind of information, it becomes very bipolar. There's the people that think you're completely crazy for even bringing the conversation up. And then there's the people on the other side that are like, don't do it. But then you ask them why not to do it. And then they'll just start saying stuff, but there's not very much depth to their understanding. That was what I was experiencing 24 years ago. So let's fast forward to today, and let's just talk about some things. And this book, the book that I have that I'm talking about is a new book that I just got. It's called Inoculated: How Science Lost Its Soul in Autism. It's by Kent Heckenlively. He's an attorney, New York Times best-selling author. Let's see what it says about him back here. He's a New York Times best-selling author, and attorney, and science teacher. During college, Heckenlively worked for U.S. Senator Pete Wilson, and in law school, he was a writer and an editor of the school's law review and spent his summers working for the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Francisco. Kent and his wife, Linda, live in Northern California, and they have 2 children, Jacqueline and Ben. Jacqueline has autism, and Ben got his shots, and then he had a major reaction to it, went home, got a high fever, started banging his head on the ground, and Kent had learned a little bit about what to do with that, and they did a gluten-free, dairy-free diet on him, and it actually cleaned it up, and now he's a normal child. Now, I'm not saying that he never was diagnosed with autism, but he had a major reaction, which goes along with what happens with it. Okay, so when you read a book like this from a person that's gone through what he's gone through, he's on a crusade. He's been dealing with this. Jacqueline's 20-something years old now, and she doesn't speak. She has a little bit of sign language. She can barely walk. He feels like she's going to fall over when she walks. He said, I've never had a conversation with my daughter in her whole life. Like she just was gone right there. And so, but I'm interested in this stuff. I'm interested in it because it's interference in the nervous system. It's disruption. It's disruption in the brain. It causes something is causing problems. And you say, well, what? But they've proven that vaccines are safe. Okay, I'm not sure they have. I'm not sure they have. I'm not talking about whether you should or not. And I'm prefacing this whole conversation to talk about health. That's where I think people lose. They lose is they talk about they don't want to talk about health, and what I want to talk about is health. And it's going to be rough talking about this. It's not going to be very organized. But I know this, and this is right off the CDC's website right here. Okay, just going back, and looking and just going back and looking at the year 2000. Okay, and this is what this is this is um, the prevalence of the number of um, combination prevalence per 1,000 children. This is how much, let me see if I can read it. Prevalence of autism spectrum disorder. And it's and if you go back to just the year 2000, not back to 1988, 1986, 1987, when they changed the rules on vaccines, but if you just look at that right there, in the year 2000, 1 in 50 children in the United States had autism spectrum disorder. 1 in 50. No, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. 1 in 150. In the year 2000, 1 in 150. No, that was the surveillance year. The birth year was 1992. So in the birth year 1992, it was 1 in 150. In the birth, and if you move up to the birth year of 2012, it's 1 in 36. It's 1 in 36 children are on the autism spectrum. Versus in 1992, I'm sorry, I had that wrong a while ago. In 1992, it was 1 in 150. Something in our environment is causing the increased amounts of children to be dealing with autism. Am I okay? Something is happening. And whose responsibility is it to try to get our children to be healthy? Because it's what one of the statistics in the book that Kent puts in the book is he says that only 20% of the children that are diagnosed with autism or have autism spectrum disorder type of symptoms when they're young will come out of it in a way that they can function in society, which means 80% of the children are not going to ever function properly in society. So one of the things I wanted to look at is how many kids are born in the United States. And if you look and you say, okay, births in the United States, there's 3,600,000. This was the birth rate. Let's see what year this was. For 2022. In 2022, there were 3,667,758 births in the United States. Well, there's a couple statistics right here that are very interesting to me, but let's just take that. If we have a 1 in 36, then let me just make sure I got the math right, because I'm pretty sure what the math says right there is that's 1 million children. If you take 3,667,758 and you divide that by 36, that's 100. It's 100,000 children. Wait, let me see if I got that right. 3,667,758 divided by 36. 101,000 children is that next year is what we're saying. There's 101,000 children. If you do 80% of those, then you're talking about 81,000 children that are going to be born next year that are never going to get past. They're going to have autism, and they're going to have it for the rest of their lives. That's 81,000 children. Something's going on. Something's going on that is causing this to happen. And that, RFK Jr., he got apparently he got through committee today, and maybe he's going to get confirmed this afternoon or maybe tomorrow, whenever that might be. I hope so. I've listened to RFK Jr. for 15 years or something now. I've been listening to him whenever he's been speaking about it, maybe since back in 2008, whatever, on this subject. Because the last thing that I want to do is make the wrong choice for my own child. And so I've heard him say it over and over and over and over again, that in his particular case, he's not anti-vaccine. He just wants safe vaccines. He wants to know if there's any relationship between the 1 in 36 number of autistic kids that we have and what might be going on in the vaccine. What is happening in there? And and so I think it's a fair conversation to have. And I know that I'm late to the party. There's been people been working on this subject for a long time. You guys all may have an opinion about it, and if you do, that is just fine too. I mean, it's like you're working at it. I'm by no means an expert on it. I don't, but I do have an opinion, and I do have an opinion that's based on some real numbers and some real stuff and some real science that has been reported to me. Now, am I the scientist that did the work? No. And I don't think any of you are either. There may be a small handful of people out there that actually have done the work. The rest of us are trusting that they'll tell us the truth. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back from the break, I'm going to show you a picture that's going to question whether or not they tell us the truth. And who is they? And what would they have incentive in the whole thing? Would they even have an incentive to tell us the truth? So let's take a break. We'll be right back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is Tuesday, February 4th, and we are working through a tough subject. We'll be right back. This this might take us a few days to work through these ideas. It's not easy to talk about because it's not easy to talk about and just be calm and try to work through some thoughts because there's so many angles of this and there's so many different things that are happening and it's hard to get someone to have a conversation about it that doesn't get sided on one side or the other. And I'm going to have a hard time with it because I'm sided on one side. But I know that a lot of you are looking for somebody to break it down in a way that they're not so one-sided about it. It's like because it's so hard to talk about. And if you talk about it with if you talk about it with doctors and nurses, then they're completely on the pro-vaccine side, right? And you talk about it with other people. It's like when that measles thing hit last week, and you just look at the comments that people make that are on the news websites. It gets to be so volatile, and it gets to be so bipolar. You're either for or against it, and if the thing about it is, if you're against it, then what the people that are for it try to make out like you're some sort of threat to the environment. You're some sort of threat to them. And then, man, that you should go to jail. You should get thrown under the jail. They should take your kids away from you. Like you should never be able to participate in society in any form or fashion. And it's like, easy just a little bit. Let's don't go all the way to that. And that's what people will do. And that's the reason I'm here with you tonight is because of that exact reason. And I've mentioned it to you before. It's like I'm here with you tonight because of I was trying to look him up while we're on the break. Let me see if I can look him up right quick. Um, let's see. I don't remember who it is. that was doing all that stuff last year during COVID. He may have retired. Hang on, let me get us back online. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're talking about a book called Inoculated, How Science Lost Its Soul in Autism. Okay, and we're talking about some of the information that comes out and how to make a stance. And really, what my goal more than anything else is not to convince. I'm not trying to convince anybody about anything. What I'm trying to do is talk about health, and trying to talk about health. And this subject is a little bit difficult. So, but I want to talk about some things because we need. Okay, let me back up. I may have people that are trying to raise kids that want to ask me like, do you have an opinion on this subject? Can you help me make a decision about what I'm trying to seek information? Do you have any information that you can share with me that will help me make the decision for what I think is best for my children? And I've talked to my pediatrician about it. They have a certain stance on it. Okay, great. I just want to know what your stance on it is. Okay, great. And that's we'll just talk about it, and we'll be calm, and we'll just talk about the thoughts of it. All right, let's talk about one of the things I want to show you is when they talk about effectiveness of things. And this came up during COVID. And this was, you remember when everybody got just like crazy about that vaccine? And they're just like, you are going to kill us all. That's why I'm here. That's what the CEO of Covenant said on a radio show with the mayor. He said, it's your civic responsibility to be vaccinated, and all you unvaccinated people are holding us vaccinated people hostage. That's what he said. I can't remember his name. I'll find it. I'll try to find his name before this week is up, and I'll look at it. Because it's not true. That's not true. What did we say yesterday? People say things that aren't true, right? That was never true. Not one time was the fact that unvaccinated people were keeping vaccinated people hostage. It wasn't true. And it's my civic duty to get vaccinated. No, it's not. It's never been that's never been a thing. Like, you're making that up just because you're trying to convince me to do something. So you're just making it up. And I'm not falling for it. And so I had to go do some research on my own. I had to look at this stuff. And I went right straight to the Pfizer website because I wanted to know what the data was. And I went to the studies, and I went and read the studies. And I don't know how many people did that. I was directed by our mayor at the time to listen to a conversation of a bunch of medical doctors that were going to talk about the science. And they talked for 3 seconds, didn't even get through the first 3 sentences, and they lied about the science. And I was like, you guys are lying. Have you gone to the website and listened? But this is how, and I showed you guys this slide last year, but this is how they come up with effectiveness. And they had 43,538 participants in their study. And I got these numbers right off the Pfizer website. I don't even know if they're still there, but they were back way back in 2000 or 2001, whenever I looked for it, right? They had 43,538 participants. They split them up into 2 different groups, 21,769 and 21,769. Let me see if that's right. 21,769 times 2 is 43,538. Yes, my math is correct. So that they had 2 different groups. They had half of them that they vaccinated, and they had half of them that they did not vaccinate. And then they waited to see what happened. And they waited, and they were supposed to wait. I don't remember exactly how long they were supposed to wait. They were supposed to wait for a certain number of time, but then they just stopped it fast because they just couldn't wait any longer. And what happened was there were 94 people that ended up with COVID. during the time frame that they had. And I mean, I don't know, it was 26 weeks or something. I don't know, whatever the frame was on that deal. There was 94 cases of COVID. Out of the 43,538 participants, 94 of them were reported sick and reported that they had symptoms, and they checked them out. And then what they found out was that there were 9 cases of that were vaccinated, and there were 85 cases that were not vaccinated. Okay, that's fair enough. Like that's what the numbers said. There was 85 cases that were of the 94 total cases. 85 of those people were unvaccinated, and of the 94 cases, 9 of them that got COVID were vaccinated. And so there's 94 total cases, and that's where they came up with it's 90% effective. And that's what they do with all of the vaccines. That's what they always do. These are pharmaceutical companies. These are pharmaceutical companies that stand to make billions of dollars, and that's the way they come up with their effectiveness. What they said was, we had 21,769 people in this group, and we had 21,769 people in this group. And at the end of the study, 21,760 of them in the vaccinated group didn't get COVID, and 21,684 of them in the non-vaccinated group didn't get COVID. And they said that that's 90% effective. So 99.95% of the vaccinated group did not get COVID, and 99.61% of the non-vaccinated group did not get COVID. I would think when you think if it's 90% effective, what it means is that 90% of the group that got vaccinated didn't get COVID, and only 10% of the group that didn't, let me say it again, 90% of the vaccinated group didn't get COVID, and only 10% of the unvaccinated group didn't get COVID. I would think 90% of those people got COVID. That's the way that they want to sell it, but that's not the way that they do the math. They don't do the math that way. They say that there was 94 total cases, and 9 of them were in the vaccinated group. That's only 10%, so it's 90% effective. And that's what they sell. The other thing that they did that they talked about was if you were to get vaccinated, it would stop. It would stop. The whole thing would stop. You wouldn't pass it to anybody. You wouldn't spread it. The COVID stopped with you, right? But the way that they did the test, they didn't see the people. They saw the people at time frames that there's no possible way they could have determined that information. And I don't remember exactly. I don't remember exactly the days. I think it was like on day 1, and then that you got your first shot, and then I think it was day 21 or 28. You got your second dose. And then they fast forwarded to like day 56 or something. And then they had you come in and they checked you. And then they went to like day 128 or something like that. And then 356. That was one of them was 356. And so I think there was a date in between there. But and they just said, if you think you're sick, then you should let us know. But there's no way that they tested those people. They didn't come in every Friday and make them run the test and take the test. They didn't make them do that. So after that 28 days, everybody knows that you could get sick. What if you got sick on day 29, and then it took you 11 or 12 days to clear it? If you took 11 days, you would be at day 40 to clear it. So you could have got it, you could have cleared it, you could have had been asymptomatic. You could have spread it to everybody in your house. You could have spread it to everybody at work. Who even knows, right? I don't know exactly how it could have worked, but I'm saying that there's no way that they could have known between day 28 and day 56 how many of these people in the vaccinated group actually got COVID. There's no way to know that. And then between day 56 and day 128, there's no possible way that you can know that either. And I don't know exactly how all these studies are done. I could just tell you that you don't have to be you don't have to be trained in virology, and you don't have to be in part of the CDC, and you could just look at that, and you guys can look at it too. You could just look at it and say, well, they told us if we got the shot that we would not spread it to anybody, we would not get COVID, none of that stuff would happen, right? That was a lie. It wasn't. It was never true, and they didn't have any science. So a lot of times, what happens is you get accused of being unscientific. You get accused of being unscientific if you have a stance that's a little bit different than what the other person wants to talk about. And the other thing is, now all of a sudden I'm a criminal. Like, I am somehow threatening you because I didn't get a COVID vaccine. Like, it was somehow I became some sort of villain in my own town. I became someone that was I'm in some sort of threat. Now, I need to be isolated away from the whole rest of the world. They did say that the argument is the same with all of the vaccines. The same thing with your kids. You know how many times I've heard people say, well, your child's not vaccinated, you can't play with my child. And it's like, okay, like that's your choice. You can do that. But it doesn't mean that I'm a danger to the other person. So when we see situations like here's one with thimerosal, and thimerosal is a mercury-based preservative that has been used for decades in the United States in multi-dose vials containing more than one dose of medicine and vaccines. That's the mercury in the vaccines. There's no evidence of harm caused by low doses of thimerosal in vaccines, except for minor reactions like redness and swelling in the injection site. In July 1999, the Public Health Service agencies, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the vaccine manufacturers agreed that thimerosal should be reduced or eliminated in vaccines as a precautionary measure. That's not true. This is right off the CDC vaccine safety page, right? There's no evidence of harm caused by low doses of this thimerosal, except in 1999, we're going to take it off the market. We're going to say that we're not going to use it anymore. And it's like, well, wait, like, why is it, if it's not dangerous, why are you getting rid of it? Well, what Kent says in his book, and he does a pretty good job with it, is he shows in multiple studies over and over again that thimerosal was that it possibly could be causing neurological damage in children. And it's like, why would you use it? And there's an article here. Hang on, let me see if I can. There's an article right here, and so what I did was I just went through my normal way of studying things, and I just went from one thing to the next. I'm like, okay, is there any association with thimerosal and autism? So I just Googled it, right? And I just found one right here, JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association Network. This was in October of 2003. Association between thimerosal containing vaccines and autism. So I just want to know. I just want to know both sides, right? And it says the context. Mercuric compounds are nephrotoxic and neurotoxic at high doses. Thimerosal, a preservative used widely in vaccine formulations, contains ethyl mercury. Thus, it has been suggested that childhood vaccinations with thimerosal containing vaccines could be causally related to neurodevelopment disorders such as autism. And the government itself did some study. There's a study in the book. I'll read it to you tomorrow night. But there's a study in the book that said that that's true. Like there's something going on in there that's causing that. Okay. So the objective was to determine whether vaccination with a thimerosal containing vaccine is associated with the development of autism. Now this is where it's so interesting. It may be thimerosal, it may not be thimerosal, but there may be something in the vaccine that's causing this problem. Okay? So what they did is they took a population-based cohort study of all children born in Denmark from January 1990 until December 31st, 1996. Comparing children vaccinated with this is what they did. And this is what Robert Kennedy says. This is his argument multiple times over and over that I've heard him say this, okay? When they do a study, here's the way they do it. They did a study comparing children vaccinated with a thimerosal-containing vaccine with children vaccinated with a thimerosal-free formulation of the same vaccine. And so it's like, what... why do you use thimerosal in the first place? Well, here's what one of these articles that I read today said. Okay, look, whenever you have, like the measles, mumps, and rubella is in the MMR vaccine, you got three different things that you're vaccinating for in there. Three different bugs, right? And anytime they have that inside a vial, and this is what I've learned, okay, throughout the years, and I read it again today. Whenever you have that inside a vial, you need something in there to keep the bacteria and the fungus or the whatever from growing in there. And he said, here's the thing: if you take a needle and you put it in and then you pull it out, and you get ready to put it in a child, there could be contamination in there, and that's what they're trying to solve is the contamination problem. So they can't do it. They need it. They need something in there that keeps it from contaminating it. Okay, that's why they use it in the first place. And I don't know exactly which website I saw that on. It's right here. Purpose of thimerosal. This is on the CDC website. Thimerosal is added to vials of vaccine that contain more than one dose, a multi-dose vial, to prevent growth of germs like bacteria and fungi. Introduction of bacteria and fungi has been potential to occur when a syringe needle enters a vial as a vaccine is being prepared for administration. Contamination by germs in a vaccine could cause several local reactions, serious illness, or death. In some vaccines, preservatives, including thimerosal, are added during the manufacturing process to prevent germ growth. So they need something to prevent the germ growth, right? So when we come over here to the Journal of American Medical Association and we see what they did, what did they do? They did a study, and they said in this study that they compared children vaccinated with a thimerosal-containing vaccine with children vaccinated with the thimerosal-free formulation of the same vaccine. My question is, if you use thimerosal to keep from bacteria and fungi from growing, and you take thimerosal out of the vaccine, what do you replace it with? Are you telling me that you're going to make that vaccine and you're not going to put anything that keeps the bacteria and the fungi from growing? Aren't you afraid of why did you put the thimerosal in the first vaccine? If its job is to keep the bacteria and the fungi from growing, when you took the thimerosal out, didn't you put something else in there to keep that from happening? And it's like, I think that is a question that ought to be answered. Because what they found was There was no difference between those two. And I just think when you're reading something like that, because here's what they'll say during the 2,986,654 person years, we identified 440 autism cases and 787 cases of other autism spectrum disorders. The risk of autism and other autistic spectrum disorders did not differ significantly between children vaccinated with a thimerosal-containing vaccine and children vaccinated with a thimerosal-free vaccine. Furthermore, we found no evidence of a dose response associated for autism or for autism spectrum disorders. Their conclusion, the results did not support a causal relationship between childhood vaccination with thimerosal-containing vaccines and development of autism spectrum disorder. That's the conclusion. And that's what you'll hear. You'll hear that over and over and over and over again by all the people that are going to defend the shot. They're going to say to you that, look, they did their research. You guys that are anti-vaccine, y'all are anti-science because you won't ever believe any of the research that's done. And we can show you research after research after research that shows you that it's safe. And Robert Kennedy said, and the same thing that a lot of other people have said, and I don't even think it necessarily. I think what we'll find out was he's like, show me the study where you compared the children getting the vaccine with the children who didn't get the vaccine. Show me that study. Don't show me the one where you got two vaccinated groups together. Show me the one where you have two apples and oranges instead of comparing one kind of apple and another kind of apple. Show me the difference between the two. And show me that there's safety involved in that whole thing. Because here's the thing. There's 1,227 kids in this study. And if you got to read down because they want to use these big old things like person years. No, just go down and tell me how many kids are in this study. And so I had to go down here and look. And there was like, let me see how many, let me find it because I did it. See if I can find the number. It was somewhere. It was 400,000 something, I think. Yeah, it was 467,450 children were born in Denmark between January 1st, 1990 and December 31st, 1996. So there's 467,000 kids. And of that 467,000 kids, 1,227 of them either got autism or autism spectrum disorder. That's 1 in 330 during that time frame right there. And we're talking about between 1990 and 1996. That number has gone from then to 1 in 36 by the time, but it's 2020. Kids, and this is the surveillance year of 2020, it's gone to 1 in 36. There's something that's going on. And so what kind of took me to the next level as I was looking at this is, well, wait a minute. Thimerosal or not thimerosal, if you take thimerosal out, what do you put in? And guess what you put in? You put in aluminum. They put in aluminum in a lot of this stuff. So now it's like, this is aluminum. Bad for the brain. Aluminum is the third most common element in the earth. Let's see, brain impacts. I don't know. Let me see. Let me get to aluminum exposure. Is aluminum exposure risk factor for neurological disorders? And I don't even have any idea what this is going to say. This is on the National Institutes of Health. So we'll just go. It's a big old long thing right here. And we'll just go down to the bottom and see what, I mean, they got all kinds of things in here. Conclusion, it is well established that aluminum is a neurotoxic agent. So you took out mercury and you put in aluminum. And it's established that it's a neurotoxic agent. So what'd you take out when you took that out of the thimerosal out of the Denmark study? What'd you put in its place? Nothing. Is that you weren't worried whatsoever about the bacteria or the fungi growing, or did you replace it with something else? And both of them are neurotoxic. And one in 330 kids ended up with autism. And it doesn't really matter unless it's your kid, right? Like if your kid got the shot and nothing happened to them, it doesn't matter to you. I mean, you feel bad for those other folks that their child had a problem, but you don't really feel that bad for them. Like, it's like whatever. It's like things happen, except for all these people in his book, congressmen, senators, science teachers, people that I watch them all the time right across the street. They drop them off right here at the building, right here in front of me. A lot of the kids that are dealing with this same stuff. I've been seeing it for 20 years in practice. I've been seeing this same thing. There's something going on that's making these numbers go up. And what we're going to talk about tomorrow night is we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about tomorrow night is I lost my radio connection. That's interesting. Is the other things that might be related to some of the things that we would pick up, and I'm gonna break it down for you. I know tonight was rough because there's just so much background stuff that you kind of want to talk about, but that's what we're going to do tomorrow night. We're going to talk about okay, let's just say that you don't get the measles, and it does work against the measles. You get vaccinated, you don't get the measles. Is there anything else that you might get? Is like chronic fatigue syndrome. Chronic fatigue syndrome. What about prostate cancer? What about gastrointestinal problems? What about increase in asthma and allergies? What about attention deficit disorder and ADHD? Are we trading? And that was the thing that I really had to do. Are we trading all these other things for this one thing? And if we are, is there a way that we could increase our health to handle the one thing and then avoid all the other things? Could we keep ourselves healthy from measles by being healthy? Now, that's my argument. My argument is that, you know what? If we would be healthy, we would handle the measles just fine. And maybe there's some benefits to having the measles. Maybe it's beneficial in the long run if you had the measles, as long as you got through it. And who are the kids that didn't get through it? And who are the kids that did get through it? And what could we do to help those kids be as healthy as possible so that if you did get it, you wouldn't die from it? What if we could do that? What if we could do that in 2025 and then eliminate anything else that might come down the road that we might have picked up from getting vaccinated? That's I don't care. I do care, but my deal is health. You get vaccinated, you don't get vaccinated, that's between you and your medical doctor. It's not between me. I don't have anything to do with it. I'm simply saying that I think we could get healthy. And I think if we were healthier, that we could handle a lot of this stuff better. And that's what I'm going to hope to, over the next 2 nights or so, I'm going to hope to break it down enough that it's logical and it makes sense. That's all I got for you tonight. If you got any comments about it, please let me know. And otherwise, I hope to see you guys tomorrow night at 6. You guys have a great evening.